The first payroll spreadsheet I ever made for my family business was on a laptop with 3 missing keys while sitting on an overturned paint bucket in the back office of our hardware store. I was 17 years old, still wearing my school uniform, and trying to teach myself bookkeeping through YouTube videos because my mother said hiring help was wasting money. My sister Vanessa was upstairs flirting with customers near the paint aisle while Mom called her a natural businesswoman. That pretty much summarizes our entire childhood. My name is Rachel Bennett, and for most of my life, I confused usefulness with love. If I fixed problems, worked harder, stayed quieter, and sacrificed first, maybe eventually my mother would look at me the way she looked at Vanessa, proud, excited, chosen. Instead, I became invisible in the exact way reliable daughters often do, useful enough to depend on, easy enough to overlook. Bennett Hardware started with my grandfather in 1978, small town family business, 1 location, then 2. By the time I was in high school, my mother had taken over after Grandpa died unexpectedly. She ran the company through sheer force of personality and caffeine addiction. Everyone in town adored her. Linda Bennett remembers every customer's name. People used to say proudly, what they didn't see was me staying until midnight balancing invoices while Mom drank wine with vendors and Vanessa posted selfies pretending she ran operations. Vanessa was 2 years older than me and beautiful in the effortless way that made people forgive her for things automatically. She smiled and rooms opened for her. Meanwhile, I learned QuickBooks, inventory systems, payroll compliance, and vendor negotiations before I turned 25. Guess which skill set my mother valued more publicly? Business is about people, Mom always told me dismissively whenever I tried discussing expansion strategies or budgeting problems. What she meant was, Vanessa makes people feel good. You make systems work quietly. Guess which one gets celebrated? By 31, I was basically running Bennett Hardware operationally while my mother remained the public face and Vanessa handled branding, which mostly meant Instagram posts and expensive seasonal displays. I worked 70-hour weeks, missed vacations, missed relationships, missed most of my 20s honestly, but every year Mom promised the same thing. One day this business will belong to both my girls equally. I believed her. Because daughters raised on conditional approval become experts at surviving on future promises. The official succession dinner happened the week before Thanksgiving. Mom rented a private room at an expensive steakhouse and invited lawyers, managers, family friends, and both of us. I actually felt nervous excitement driving there. 12 years of sacrifice finally meant something tangible. I even wore the navy dress my assistant said made me look like a CEO. Stupid in hindsight. Vanessa arrived 40 minutes late wearing cream designer pants and kissing air beside people's faces like she was campaigning for office. Mom beamed immediately when she entered. There's my future, singular. I should have noticed that. Halfway through dinner Mom stood holding a wine glass dramatically. I have an announcement. Everyone smiled expectantly. My stomach tightened slightly. After careful consideration, Mom continued proudly. I've decided Vanessa will officially take over Bennett Hardware as CEO next year. The room erupted into applause, actual applause. I sat completely still. For one strange second, I genuinely thought maybe there was more coming. Co-CEO, partnership, operations division, something. Then Mom looked at me and smiled brightly. And Rachel will continue supporting the company in her invaluable role behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, 12 years, thousands of unpaid overtime hours, no vacations, no weekends. Behind the scenes, my face actually felt numb. Vanessa stood immediately hugging Mom while people congratulated them both. Someone beside me whispered, makes sense. Vanessa's always had leadership energy. Interesting phrase for someone who once accidentally ordered 6,000 units of winter salt in July because she liked the vendor's vibe. Mom finally approached me during dessert looking irritated by my silence already. Say something. I looked up slowly. You gave her the company. Mom frowned slightly. Don't start tonight. Don't start. Every dysfunctional family has a phrase designed to suppress accountability before it appears. I built most of your operational systems, and Vanessa built the brand. I actually laughed softly because the absurdity overwhelmed me for a second. The brand? Mom's expression hardened immediately. This is exactly why people struggle connecting with you sometimes. There it was. My flaw. Not emotional enough. Not charming enough. Not Vanessa enough. You told me we'd share ownership. Mom sighed dramatically like I was embarrassing her publicly. Rachel, leadership isn't just spreadsheets, neither is payroll fraud. That slipped out before I could stop it. Mom's eyes flashed instantly. Excuse me? I leaned back slowly. Nothing, but something shifted in her face right then. Tiny fear, tiny recognition, because unlike Vanessa, I knew exactly how the business actually operated financially, and over the last year, certain numbers stopped making sense. Cash flow gaps, missing tax payments, vendor balances quietly moved between accounts. I'd asked questions before, Mom always brushed them off. temporary adjustments, accounting timing, you worry too much. That night after the dinner, Vanessa cornered me in the parking lot smiling too brightly. Don't be bitter. I stared at her. I'm tired. She crossed her arms defensively immediately. Mom thinks I'm better with people. Mom thinks people who flatter her are talented. Vanessa's smile disappeared. See? That attitude. What attitude? Like you're smarter than everyone. I almost laughed. I am smarter than you about the business. Silence. Sharp silence. Vanessa stepped closer. You know what your problem is? You think working hard automatically means you deserve love. That sentence hit so hard I actually stopped breathing for a second, because underneath the cruelty, she was right. I drove home shaking with anger, not because I lost the company, because deep down, part of me always knew this outcome was possible and kept sacrificing anyway. That's the tragedy of children raised chasing approval. We keep auditioning long after the casting decision was already made. 2 weeks later, Mom officially announced Vanessa as future CEO on social media. Professional photos, champagne, captions about passing the torch to the next generation. My name appeared once near the bottom. Special thanks to Rachel for years of dedication. Dedication, not partnership, not leadership, employee language. I quit 3 days later. Mom called screaming within minutes after HR received my resignation email. You are humiliating this family. Interesting, not hurting the family business, humiliating it. Appearances always came first with my mother. You made your choice. I said calmly. So did I. You're being emotional. No, I replied quietly. I'm finally being logical. She hung up on me. Vanessa texted later. You're overreacting. Then, Mom's under a lot of stress. Then finally, you know the company needs you. There it was, is needs. My family only valued me through utility. I accepted a corporate operations job in Chicago 2 weeks later. Better salary, better hours, actual benefits. My new boss thanked people publicly and didn't treat exhaustion like proof of loyalty. Honestly, the kindness felt suspicious at first. Then Thanksgiving happened. Mom insisted I come home despite barely speaking since I quit. Family should stay together during holidays, she said tightly over the phone. Funny how family unity becomes important only after favoritism creates consequences. I almost declined, but something pulled me there anyway. Maybe curiosity, maybe hope, maybe habit. Thanksgiving dinner started tense immediately. Vanessa spent most of the evening bragging about modernizing the stores while Mom nodded proudly beside her. We're pivoting branding toward luxury home identity, Vanessa explained to relatives who clearly just wanted mashed potatoes. I sat quietly eating stuffing, while noticing little things automatically. Mom drinking more than usual, Vanessa checking her phone constantly, Uncle Rob whispering with Dad near the kitchen. Stress, financial stress. I recognized it instantly after years handling payroll disasters. Then the doorbell rang. Mom frowned. Who on earth? She opened the front door, and 2 people wearing dark jackets stepped inside holding folders. Linda Bennett? One asked calmly. Silence swallowed the entire dining room. Mom's face drained completely. Yes? We're with the Internal Revenue Service. My fork literally froze halfway to my mouth. Vanessa looked like she might faint immediately. The taller agent opened his folder. We've attempted multiple contacts regarding outstanding payroll tax discrepancies connected to Bennett Hardware Incorporated. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Mom did something unbelievable. She looked directly at me, like instinctively. Automatically, I would fix this, the same way I always fixed everything. Rachel, she whispered shakily. One of the agents turned toward me. And you are? I swallowed slowly. Former operations manager. Former. The word sounded strange and freeing simultaneously. The agent nodded carefully. Were you responsible for payroll processing? Here it was, the moment everything clarified. Because suddenly I understood why Mom rushed succession, why financial reports disappeared, why she got defensive every time I asked questions. She wasn't just playing favorites. She was hiding a collapsing business behind Vanessa's shiny branding campaign. Mom interrupted quickly. Rachel left abruptly before transition finished. Translation. Prepare the scapegoat. My stomach turned cold instantly. Vanessa stared at me with wide, desperate eyes. Ratch. Not sister, not apology, just panic, the IRS agent asked calmly. Did you authorize payroll tax reallocations during your employment? I looked directly at my mother. 12 years of unpaid labor, emotional neglect, broken promises, and endless sacrifice, and in the first real crisis, her instinct was still self-protection over me. Something inside me finally settled completely. No, I said clearly. I repeatedly documented concerns about missing payroll deposits. Silence exploded through the room. Mom looked horrified, truly horrified, not because I lied, because I told the truth publicly. The second agent immediately took notes. Do you have documentation? I almost laughed at the predictability. Of course I did. I documented everything. Responsible daughters always do because somewhere deep down, We know nobody will protect us later. Mom stood suddenly. Rachel, don't do this here. Here, not don't do this. Just not publicly. I looked at her calmly. You already did this. Vanessa started crying instantly. Mom said it was temporary. The room snapped toward her. Mom's face changed violently. Vanessa, too late. Once panic enters a room, secrets start. Tripping over each other trying to escape first, the agents requested financial records immediately. Dinner ended within 20 minutes. Relatives fled awkwardly carrying pie containers like survivors escaping a natural disaster. Mom cornered me in the kitchen while the agents reviewed documents in Dad's office. How dare you? I stared at her in disbelief. How dare I? Her voice shook furiously. You could destroy this family. There it was again, accountability framed as betrayal. You tried setting me up as operational fall guy. That is not true. Then why mention my resignation timeline immediately? Silence, sharp, guilty silence. Mom's eyes filled suddenly with angry tears. I did everything for this family. No, I said quietly, you did everything for appearances. That landed hard, because deep down, she knew it too. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway looking wrecked, mascara streaked, voice shaking. Is the company going under? Mom snapped instantly. Not if people stopped panicking, but nobody believed her anymore, especially me. The investigation lasted months afterward. Turns out payroll taxes had gone unpaid for almost 2 years while Mom quietly shuffled money trying to maintain expansion appearances. New signage, rebranding campaigns, luxury vendor events, all funded by essentially borrowing from the government illegally. Vanessa genuinely didn't understand most of it. She signed paperwork without reading because Mom told her leaders delegate details. Meanwhile, the detail-oriented daughter got excluded from ownership while being expected to absorb liability if necessary. The irony almost impressed me. Eventually Bennett Hardware filed bankruptcy protection. One store closed entirely. Mom lost control of the company during restructuring. Vanessa's CEO title lasted exactly 4 months. The strange part? I didn't feel victorious, just sad, because beneath all my anger, I loved that business once. I loved stocking shelves with Grandpa as a kid. I loved helping customers find impossible screws for ancient cabinets. I loved believing hard work meant belonging. A year later, Mom called unexpectedly, first time in months. Can we have lunch? She asked quietly. We met at a tiny diner halfway between our towns. She looked older, softer somehow, less armored. Halfway through coffee she finally whispered, I should have given you the company. I stared at her silently, not because Vanessa failed. She added quickly, because you earned it. That sentence should have healed something instantly. Instead, it mostly made me tired. Because some apologies arrive years after the damage already shaped your entire life. Why didn't you? I asked softly. Mom looked down at her coffee cup for a long moment. Vanessa needed confidence. There it was. The entire family system condensed into one sentence. One daughter received support because she appeared fragile. The other received pressure because she appeared capable. And me? I asked quietly. Mom's eyes filled slightly. I thought you'd survive without it. That hurt because it was true. I did survive. But survival isn't the same thing as being valued. Before we left lunch, Mom reached into her purse and handed me an old brass nameplate from Grandpa's original office, Bennett Hardware. Operations. He wanted you to have this someday, she whispered. I ran my thumb across the scratched metal slowly, and suddenly I understood something important. Families like mine confuse resilience with invincibility. They give the stronger child less because they mistake competence for emotional immunity. But capable daughters still bleed. We just learn how to do it quietly enough that nobody notices until years later when we finally stop volunteering for sacrifice. I keep that nameplate in my office now, not because I miss the company, because it reminds me of something I learned too late. Being needed is not the same thing as being loved. And people who only value you for what you carry will call you selfish the moment you finally put the weight down.